You can't control the world, but you can control your response to it. Most people never learn this truth. They spend their entire life reacting, exploding when something goes wrong, collapsing when someone disrespects them, drowning in emotions that were never meant to guide their lives in the first place. Think about how many opportunities were lost because of a 5-second reaction, a relationship ruined because someone spoke out of anger, a job destroyed because frustration took over, a moment of weakness that created months of regret. Almost every major mistake human beings make begins with one simple thing, an emotion that took control before a mind could think. You've seen it in your own life. Moments when you said something you didn't mean. Times when fear stopped you from trying. Times when anger pushed you into conflict. Times when sadness convinced you to give up. Times when jealousy made you act smaller than who you are. These moments didn't happen because you were weak. They happened because no one ever taught you how to master what happens inside you. We are raised to chase goals, chase validation, chase success, but no one teaches us the skill that decides everything, controlling your inner world before it controls you. Mastering your emotions is not about being cold. It's not about pretending nothing affects you. It's not about shutting down your heart. Emotional mastery is the opposite. It's learning to feel deeply without being destroyed. It's learning to respond instead of react. It's learning to stay steady while everything around you moves. You are not meant to be controlled by impulses. You are meant to be guided by clarity. Imagine how different life feels when emotions stop dragging you in every direction, when someone's words don't break you, when stress doesn't push you into panic, when anger doesn't explode into actions you regret, when fear becomes information instead of paralysis, when uncertainty becomes patience instead of chaos. Emotional control is not a personality trait. It is a trained skill, like strength, like discipline, like endurance. And once you learn it, your entire life changes. Think about a moment when your emotions got the better of you. Maybe you reacted too fast. Maybe you shut down completely. Maybe you let the situation overwhelm your confidence. In that moment, you weren't thinking. You were surviving. And survival mode decisions rarely create the life you want. This audiobook is your guide out of that cycle. In the chapters ahead, you will learn how to pause before reacting, how to separate feeling from action, how to detach without becoming distant, how to stay calm under pressure, how to build discipline as emotional armor, how to develop inner strength that does not collapse under stress, how to speak to yourself in a way that builds you instead of breaking you, how to protect your energy so no one else controls your emotional weather, how to build boundaries that reflect self-respect, and how to grow into the version of yourself who does not lose control, no matter the situation. Because emotional mastery is not just about avoiding mistakes, it is about gaining power, the kind of power that shows up in silence, in patience, in stillness, in the ability to say, I will respond when I am ready, not when my emotions demand it. When you master your emotions, you become someone others trust. Your presence becomes grounding. Your decisions become strategic. Your words become intentional. Your mind becomes clear. Your life becomes peaceful. You stop living in reaction and start living in control. You will still feel everything, anger, fear, sadness, joy, but none of it will rule you. You will learn how to observe emotions instead of obeying them. You will learn how to choose what deserves your attention. You will learn how to build a mind that does not shatter under pressure. By listening to this audiobook, you're not just gaining information, you're reshaping identity. You are choosing to become someone who does not break easily, someone who leads themselves with discipline, clarity, and calm strength, someone who knows that true power is not loud. It is controlled, it is intentional, it is internal. By the end of this audiobook, you'll understand how emotional control leads to strength, peace, and self-respect. Subscribe to Evoke Audiobooks for more daily audiobooks on mindset and self-growth. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Cost of Emotional Chaos. Emotional chaos rarely arrives loudly. It usually starts quietly. An irritation you ignore, a thought you don't control, a reaction you don't question. But slowly it builds. Slowly it begins shaping the way you speak, decide, and behave. By the time you notice the damage, the chaos has already taken root. Every person has moments where emotions rise before logic does. The problem is not the emotion. The problem is the loss of control. Emotional chaos is when your feelings decide for you. It is when the inner storm becomes stronger than your values. It is when impulse wins over intention. This chapter is about understanding the real cost, how emotional instability affects your life, your relationships, your health, your decisions, and your future. Most people underestimate this cost. They think emotional moments pass without consequences. But emotional chaos is not a moment. It is a pattern. And patterns, when repeated long enough, become personality. You can love deeply, work hard, dream big. But if your emotions control your reactions, your potential remains locked behind instability. Think about someone who consistently ruins their own opportunities without realizing it. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack intelligence, but because they cannot manage what happens inside them long enough to use their abilities fully. Emotional chaos is expensive. It costs time. It costs peace. It costs relationships. It costs progress. It costs self-respect. And most importantly, it costs control over your life. Consider the person who lashes out in anger. One sentence spoken at the wrong moment can end a friendship, break trust, or destroy a professional relationship built over years. Anger rarely damages the moment alone. It damages everything that comes after it. Now, think of the person who reacts from fear. They hesitate when opportunity appears. They overthink when clarity is needed. They choose comfort over growth and regret over courage. Fear convinces them to live small, and life becomes a series of what-ifs. Jealousy, insecurity, envy. These emotions quietly rewrite your behavior. They make you compare your life to others. They make you defensive, oversensitive, or resentful. They steal joy from your wins and turn your energy toward negativity. You don't need a crisis to feel ruined, just a mind that you cannot steady. Emotional chaos also shows up in smaller ways that people ignore. The irritation that turns into arguments, the stress that becomes impatience, the disappointment that becomes bitterness, the overwhelm that becomes withdrawal. Every time you react without awareness, you teach your mind something. I don't control emotions, emotions control me. This is the most dangerous lesson a person can learn. Some people live entire lives emotionally exhausted, not because the world is too harsh, but because they are internally unprepared. When your emotions are untrained, the simplest problems feel heavy. A small criticism feels like an attack. A small delay feels like failure. A small disagreement feels like betrayal. A small obstacle feels like defeat. IG's emotional chaos magnifies problems. It turns single moments into entire stories. It makes you respond to life from the wound rather than the wisdom. But the cost goes deeper. Emotional instability destroys focus. Your mind becomes cluttered with unnecessary reactions. You think more about how you feel than what needs to be done. Tasks become overwhelming because your energy leaks into emotional reactions instead of strategic action. Imagine trying to build a life while constantly extinguishing emotional fires. It becomes exhausting. You start to lose the energy to dream, improve, or pursue anything demanding. You start living on emotional autopilot, reacting, regretting, recovering, and repeating. Over time, emotional chaos builds internal noise. noise that distracts you, noise that confuses you, noise that prevents you from hearing your own intuition. You stop trusting yourself because your actions feel unpredictable. You stop growing because your emotions consume your bandwidth. You stop believing in your own stability because your reactions dictate your identity. But emotional chaos also affects something deeper: self-respect. Every time you react in ways that hurt you, you lose trust in yourself. You feel disappointed in your lack of control. You become ashamed of your reactions. You promise yourself that next time you'll stay calm, but without training, the cycle returns. Self-respect requires inner discipline. You cannot respect a mind that you cannot control. And then there is the cost on relationships. People may forgive emotional chaos once or twice, but repeated instability slowly pushes them away. Not because they dislike you, but because emotional unpredictability drains them. When your reactions are inconsistent, people walk on eggshells around you. They become cautious, they become quiet, they become distant. Not because you are unworthy, but because your emotions have become unpredictable. Emotional chaos doesn't just affect how others see you, it affects how you see them. You start assuming intentions that don't exist. You start misinterpreting words. You start seeing threats where there are none. You start viewing the world through the lens of your emotional storms. When emotions dominate perception, clarity disappears. This is why emotionally unstable people struggle with decision-making. Every choice becomes tangled in fear, doubt, insecurity, or impulse. They decide based on how they feel now, not on what will matter later. They make emotional decisions instead of intelligent ones. But the cost grows even more when emotional chaos becomes chronic. Your body feels it. Stress hormones rise. Sleep becomes shallow. Energy becomes inconsistent. Your mind becomes foggy. Your patience shortens. Your resilience weakens. Emotional chaos is not just psychological. It is physical. Your body carries the weight of every unregulated reaction. And then there is the silent cost: lost potential. You can have skill, ambition, or intelligence, creativity, but without emotional control, none of it becomes sustainable. Talent cannot replace stability. Ambition cannot replace calmness. Intelligence cannot replace emotional awareness. Emotional chaos makes you the enemy of your own potential. So, how do people end up trapped in this cycle? Oh, often they were never taught emotional awareness. They were taught to express emotions or suppress them, but never regulate them. They were taught to react, not observe. They were taught to speak, not pause. They were taught to defend themselves, not understand themselves. Emotional chaos becomes normal because emotional discipline was never practiced. But here is the truth. No one is born with emotional control. It is a skill. It is something you build the same way you build strength, through repetition, awareness, and discipline. The first step is awareness. You must see emotional chaos clearly before you can change it. You must notice your triggers. You must understand your impulses. You must recognize the moments you lose control. Awareness creates space. Space creates choice. Choice creates change. When you become aware, you begin to interrupt the pattern. You begin to question your impulses. You begin to slow down reactions. You begin to choose responses instead of defaulting to them. And something powerful happens. Your emotions stop being rulers and become signals, signals of something deeper, needs, fears, beliefs, boundaries, signals meant to be understood, not obeyed. This chapter is not here to make you criticize yourself. It is here to make you understand the true cost of letting your emotions run your life. Because once you see the cost clearly, the desire for control becomes stronger than the habit of reaction. Awareness is the beginning of mastery. Awareness is the first act of control. Chapter 2. Feeling versus following. There is a difference between feeling an emotion and following it. Most people never learn that difference. They believe that if they feel something strongly, they must act on it. If they feel anger, they must express it. If they feel fear, they must obey it. If they feel sadness, they must collapse into it. If they feel jealousy, they must react to it. But emotions are not commands. They are signals. They are messages, not instructions. They tell you something is happening inside, but they do not decide what you should do outside. This chapter is about understanding the gap, the space between feeling an emotion and choosing a behavior. This gap is where emotional mastery lives. Most people move from emotion to action instantly. No pause, no reflection, no awareness. They feel, and they follow. Feeling angry, raising their voice. Feeling insecure, attacking or withdrawing. Feeling anxious, avoiding. Feeling jealous, accusing or controlling. Feeling sad, shutting down completely. They don't even realize there is another option. The option to feel fully but choose intentionally. Imagine if every thought that floated through your mind became a truth. Imagine if every desire became an action. Imagine if every fear became a limitation. Life would quickly become unmanageable. That is exactly what happens when emotions are followed blindly. Life becomes an emotional reaction instead of an intelligent creation. Feeling is human. Following is optional. Let's break down the difference. Feeling is automatic. It arrives with no effort. It shows up based on past experiences, beliefs, perceptions, and expectations. You cannot stop an emotion from arriving. You cannot stop your body from reacting. You cannot prevent the first wave. But following the emotion, obeying it, that is where choice exists. Following is a decision, and most people make that decision unconsciously. The real task is to bring that decision into consciousness. Think of anger. Anger is not the problem. Anger is a natural emotion that tells you something feels unfair, disrespectful, or wrong. Feeling that anger is healthy. But following the anger, yelling, insulting, acting impulsively, creates damage. You can feel anger without following it. The same goes for fear. Fear is information. Fear signals uncertainty, risk, or potential harm. But following fear, avoiding growth, avoiding challenges, avoiding responsibility, shrinks your life. You can feel fear without following it. Jealousy arises from insecurity, comparison, or fear of loss. Feeling it is normal. But following it, controlling others, accusing them, punishing them, destroys trust. You can feel jealousy without following it. Sadness comes from disappointment, loss, or unmet expectations. Feeling it is human. Following it, isolating yourself, shutting down, giving up, deepens the pain. You can feel sadness without following it. This idea may sound simple, but it is one of the most powerful emotional skills a person can develop, the ability to separate the emotion from the behavior. Emotional maturity begins the moment you stop assuming that emotions must dictate actions. And here is the truth that most people never learn. You can feel everything without being ruled by anything. How do you practice this separation? Through awareness, observation, and the simple but powerful technique of pausing. The pause is where emotional intelligence lives. The pause is the difference between reacting and responding. The pause is the space where you ask yourself, what am I feeling and what is the best way to act? This pause can be 1 second or 10 minutes. The length doesn't matter, the existence of the pause does. When you pause, you interrupt the autopilot. You interrupt the habitual reaction. You interrupt the emotional momentum before it becomes behavior. Without the pause, emotion controls behavior. With the pause, you choose behavior regardless of the emotion. Most emotional damage happens because people skip the pause. They allow the first reaction to become the action. They allow the intensity of the feeling to override intention. They allow the temporary emotion to create permanent consequences. The pause is not suppression. It is awareness. It is clarity. It is you saying, I will not hand my life over to the first emotion I feel. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. Your initial reaction might be anger. Your heart rate rises, your muscles tense, your mind jumps to judgment. The feeling is automatic. But the pause allows you to choose the next step. Instead of yelling, accelerating aggressively, or letting the emotion control your mood, you can simply acknowledge the feeling. I am angry because I felt disrespected. Acknowledgement without reaction is emotional maturity. Imagine someone gives you criticism. Your immediate reaction might be defensiveness, embarrassment, or irritation. The feeling is automatic. But you have a choice. Follow the emotion or interpret it. You can respond, maybe there is something useful here, or this is uncomfortable, but I can learn from it. Feeling doesn't disappear. The reaction changes. The same applies to fear. You may feel fear before an opportunity, before a presentation, before a difficult conversation, before a new decision. The fear is automatic. But following the fear means letting it dictate your life. Choosing a different action despite the fear is emotional control. The feeling doesn't vanish. You simply stop obeying it. The mistake people make is believing that emotional control means avoiding emotions. Avoiding emotions is suppression, not mastery. Suppression only pushes emotions deeper, where they grow stronger and explode later. Emotional control means experiencing emotions fully but consciously. It means saying, I feel this deeply, but I decide what happens next. And this is where the pause and choose technique becomes powerful. It rewires the emotional pattern. It teaches your brain that emotion is not a command. It builds the habit of thinking before reacting. Let's break down how the pause works in your daily life. When someone disrespects you, pause before reacting. You can feel the sting but choose your response. When you feel overwhelmed, pause before collapsing. You can feel the pressure but choose your next step. When you feel insecure, pause before acting small. You can feel the insecurity but choose confidence. When you feel jealous, pause before attacking. You can feel the jealousy but choose communication. When you feel stressed, pause before shutting down. You can feel the stress but choose a strategy. The pause doesn't eliminate the emotion. It eliminates the emotional control over your behavior. Over time, this skill becomes your natural state. You begin to respond with intention rather than impulse. You begin to make decisions based on values rather than moods. You begin to lead yourself instead of being dragged by your feelings. You stop fearing emotions because you no longer mistake them for instructions. You stop feeling guilty for emotions because you learn they are not wrong. They are information. You stop judging yourself for emotional reactions because you know you can change the follow-up behavior. Feeling becomes a guide, not a master. The more you practice this separation, the more stable your life becomes. Conversations become easier. Conflicts become manageable. Decisions become clearer. Relationships become healthier. Your mind becomes calmer. People who learn this skill stand out. They are consistent. They are steady. They are trusted. They are respected. Not because they never feel, but because they always choose. You can feel everything without letting it drive your life. You can feel anger and still choose respect. You can feel fear and still choose courage. You can feel sadness and still choose strength. You can feel jealousy and still choose understanding. You can feel insecurity and still choose confidence. The emotion is real. The action is chosen. This is the foundation of emotional mastery. This is the skill that turns chaos into clarity. This is the skill that transforms relationships, careers, and identity. Feeling is the beginning. Following is the habit. Choosing is the mastery. By the end of this audiobook, you will learn how to turn every emotion into information and every reaction into intention. You will learn how to internalize the pause until it becomes your default response. You will learn how to feel deeply without losing control. Because emotional power is not the absence of emotion, it is the ability to direct emotion rather than obey it. You can feel everything without being ruled by anything. Chapter 3. The Power of Detachment. Most people misunderstand detachment. They think it means being cold, distant, emotionless, or uncaring. They imagine detachment as shutting people out, disconnecting from life, or avoiding attachment altogether. But real detachment is none of these things. Detachment is not the absence of emotion. Detachment is the absence of emotional enslavement. It is peace without withdrawal, strength without hardness, clarity without coldness. Detachment is the ability to stay centered even when the world around you shifts. It is the ability to care deeply without collapsing. It is the ability to love without losing yourself. It is the ability to stay engaged without being consumed. This chapter is about understanding detachment as emotional protection, emotional wisdom, and emotional power. When you are overly attached to outcomes, to expectations, to people, to validation, you lose control of your emotional center. Your peace becomes fragile. Your decisions become reactive. Your sense of worth becomes dependent on things you cannot control. Attachment makes you emotionally volatile. Detachment makes you emotionally steady. Let's start with the simplest truth. Detachment is not about not caring. Detachment is about caring in a healthy way. Attachment says, I need this to go my way or I can't be okay. Detachment says, I prefer this outcome, but I will be okay regardless. Attachment says, I need this person to validate me. Detachment says, I value them, but my worth is my own. Attachment says, if plans change, I lose control. Detachment says, if plans change, I adjust. Attachment says, my peace depends on external stability. Detachment says, my peace depends on internal stability. Notice the difference. One gives your power away, the other protects it. Emotional mastery is impossible without detachment, because attachment makes you vulnerable in the wrong ways. It exposes your emotional center to forces you cannot control. Let's explore how attachment shows up in daily life. When you need a certain response from someone, you become attached to behavior you cannot control. When you expect others to understand you perfectly, you become attached to unrealistic expectations. When you obsess over how people see you, you become attached to your image. When you fear losing someone, you become attached to a future you invented in your mind. When you tie your self-worth to a result, grades, money, success, you become attached to outcomes that fluctuate constantly. Every one of these attachments creates emotional volatility. They make your emotions unstable because they depend on things outside your control. Detachment puts your emotional control back in your hands. When you detach, you stop giving the outside world permission to dictate your inner world. You stop giving circumstances the power to decide your mood. You stop giving people the power to define your worth. You stop giving outcomes the power to determine your identity. You regain the one thing emotional chaos took from you, your center. Let's examine the emotional benefits of healthy detachment. First, clarity. When you are overly attached, emotions cloud your judgment. You see what you want to see, not what is real. You force outcomes instead of observing them. You project expectations instead of understanding truth. Detachment clears the lens. You see people clearly. You see situations clearly. You see choices clearly. You see yourself clearly. Clarity leads to better decisions, better boundaries, and better relationships. Second, emotional resilience. When you are attached, disappointment crushes you. You take everything personally. You overreact because everything feels like a threat. You get triggered easily because your emotional dependency is too high. Detachment creates emotional space. Disappointments don't destroy you. Rejection doesn't define you. Failure doesn't break you. Unexpected changes don't destabilize you. You feel everything, but you don't collapse. Third, freedom. Attachment traps you in mental prisons. Fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of change, fear of uncertainty. You become emotionally rigid, trying to control everything to protect your expectations. Detachment liberates you. You become flexible. You become adaptable. You become open-minded. You stop forcing and start flowing. Freedom allows you to respond instead of react. It allows you to choose rather than cling. Fourth, strength. Detachment gives you a kind of quiet strength. Calm, grounded, intentional. You become the person who doesn't break under pressure, who doesn't panic in uncertainty, who doesn't overreact when challenged. People begin to trust your steadiness. You become someone others rely on, not someone who drains energy. Strength grows naturally when emotions no longer pull you in every direction. Let's look deeper into emotional over-involvement, a major source of instability. Emotional over-involvement is when you become too entangled with what doesn't belong to you. You carry other people's emotions. You carry their problems. You carry their reactions. You carry their opinions. You feel responsible for things beyond your control. You try to fix everything, save everything, manage everything. This over-involvement drains your emotional energy. It leaves you exhausted, frustrated, overwhelmed. Detachment creates necessary boundaries. This emotion is mine. That emotion is theirs. This responsibility is mine. That responsibility is not. This reaction is within my control. That reaction is not. Boundaries help you engage without drowning. Another key aspect of detachment is letting go of outcomes. You can work hard without needing a specific result. You can love without demanding guarantees. You can try without fearing failure. You can commit without losing your identity. Outcome. Attachment suffocates potential. Outcome detachment unleashes it. When you detach from outcomes, you don't lose ambition. You gain power, because your energy shifts from fear to focus, from panic to purpose, from desperation to dedication. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And you start asking, what can I control right now? Detachment is not passivity. Detachment is power without desperation. And then there is detachment from people, one of the hardest forms of emotional mastery. Detachment doesn't mean pushing people away. It means respecting yourself enough not to cling. It means allowing people to be who they are instead of who you wish they were. It means loving without obsession. It means giving without losing your identity. It means staying close without depending on them for peace. When attachment controls a relationship, love becomes fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of rejection. When detachment enters a relationship, love becomes healthier. It becomes free. It becomes respectful. It becomes balanced. It becomes stable. You stop trying to possess. You start trying to understand. You stop trying to control. You start trying to connect. Detachment transforms relationships, because when you stop clinging, you stop suffocating the bond. And then there is something deeper: detachment from your own thoughts. Not every thought deserves belief. Not every assumption deserves energy. Not every fear deserves obedience. Not every memory deserves reliving. Detachment allows you to observe your thoughts without becoming them. You begin to say, this is just a thought, not a truth. This is just a feeling, not a command. This is just a memory, not a prediction. You don't fight thoughts, you outgrow them. This mental detachment is a form of self-liberation. It frees you from overthinking, spiraling, rumination, and self-doubt. And then there is detachment from the past. Attachment to your past identity, past mistakes, past trauma, past beliefs. This keeps you stuck. It makes you relive old stories. It makes you defend old limitations. It makes you fear new possibilities. Detachment from the past is not forgetting. It is releasing the belief that your past defines your future. You begin to say, I am not who I was. I am who I choose to be now. This shift changes everything. Throughout this chapter, there is one theme. Detachment is emotional self-respect. It is telling yourself, I will not abandon my peace for anything I cannot control. Detachment is not indifference. It is wisdom. It is understanding that attachment amplifies suffering, and detachment amplifies peace. You will still feel deeply. You will still love deeply. You will still care deeply. But you will not collapse when things don't go your way. You will not fall apart when people disappoint you. You will not lose yourself when circumstances change. You will not break under emotional pressure. You will stay balanced. You will stay centered. You will stay grounded. Detachment is the art of caring without collapsing. It is the art of letting go without losing connection. It is the art of participating without controlling. It is the art of engaging without clinging. And it is one of the core foundations of emotional mastery. Because once you detach from what you cannot control, you finally gain control over what truly matters: your focus, your peace, your behavior, your response, your life. This is the power detachment gives you, the ability to stay calm in a world that keeps shifting, the ability to stay grounded in situations designed to shake you, the ability to stay strong without being hardened, the ability to stay kind without being controlled. Detachment is not a wall. It is a shield that protects your emotional energy and keeps your inner world stable regardless of the outer world's chaos. Detachment is the difference between emotional survival and emotional mastery. And it is a skill you will continue to strengthen throughout this audiobook. Detachment is the art of caring without collapsing. Chapter 4. Discipline as Emotional Armor. Most people think discipline is only about productivity, waking up early, working harder, pushing yourself further. But emotional mastery reveals something deeper. Discipline is not just a habit. Discipline is emotional armor. It protects your mind from chaos. It shields your emotions from instability. It creates stability inside you, even when life outside you is unpredictable. People with discipline experience fewer emotional breakdowns, not because they feel less, but because structure holds them together. A disciplined life creates a disciplined mind, and a disciplined mind creates balanced emotions. This chapter is about understanding discipline as a source of emotional stability, not just external success. Many emotional struggles come from a lack of structure. When your life is disorganized, your mind becomes disorganized. When your habits are fragile, your emotions become fragile. When you have no routine, your feelings take control. When you lack consistency, your reactions become inconsistent. Emotional chaos thrives in an unstructured life. Discipline, however, builds an inner container, a framework, a foundation, a rhythm, a predictable baseline that supports emotional balance. Think of discipline as a railing on a staircase. It doesn't remove the steps. It doesn't stop you from climbing or descending. It simply gives you something to hold on to, something steady when your legs shake. Your emotions will always fluctuate, but discipline keeps your life steady enough to prevent emotional swings from destroying progress. Let's look at why discipline is deeply connected to emotional control. First, Discipline strengthens self-trust. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, wake up on time, complete a task, maintain a routine, your mind learns something powerful. I am reliable. And self-trust reduces emotional insecurity, because insecurity often begins with this thought: I can't trust myself to handle things. Discipline rewires that belief. You begin to feel grounded. You begin to feel capable. You begin to feel in control. Second, discipline reduces emotional overwhelm. Most people feel overwhelmed not because tasks are impossible, but because tasks pile up. The lack of structure turns small duties into a mountain. Procrastination fuels anxiety, avoidance fuels guilt, and guilt fuels emotional instability. But when you follow a routine, you create order. Order reduces stress. Order creates clarity. Order stabilizes emotions. Discipline simplifies life, and simplicity calms the mind. Third, discipline prevents emotional impulsivity. When you build the habit of doing hard things even when you don't feel like it, you teach your mind something essential. Emotions do not dictate my actions. This becomes emotional strength. A disciplined person can feel anger but still speak respectfully, can feel fear but still move forward, can feel sadness but still complete necessary tasks, can feel anxiety but still show up where needed. Discipline trains you to act based on values, not moods. Fourth, discipline helps regulate your nervous system. Your body thrives on rhythm, sleep-wake cycles, consistent exercise, regular meals, predictable routines. When your environment is steady, your body relaxes. When your day is structured, your brain feels safe. And emotional storms weaken when the body is regulated. This is why people who lack routine often feel emotionally unstable. They are physiologically unanchored. Discipline anchors you. Fifth, discipline builds resilience. Each time you push through discomfort, waking early, exercising, focusing, showing up, you strengthen your tolerance for difficulty. Difficulty then becomes less frightening. Challenges become manageable. Pressure becomes familiar instead of overwhelming. Emotionally unstable people often crumble under stress because they are untrained in discomfort. Discipline trains you. Now, let's explore what emotional chaos looks like in the absence of discipline. When you wake up late, you begin the day rushed. When you're rushed, you're stressed. When you're stressed, you're reactive. When you're reactive, your emotions dominate. One missed routine becomes an emotional avalanche. When you postpone tasks, they grow in your mind. They become heavier, more intimidating. This creates anxiety. Anxiety turns into procrastination. Procrastination turns into guilt. Guilt turns into emotional exhaustion. When you lack physical discipline, your body becomes restless. Restlessness becomes irritation. Irritation becomes anger. Anger becomes impulsive behavior. When you lack mental discipline, you let every thought carry you away. Your mind wanders, spirals, panics. Without discipline, overthinking takes the wheel. When you lack emotional discipline, you let moods guide your day. You do things only when you feel like it. You avoid things when they feel hard. Your feelings lead you directly into instability. Without discipline, emotions take over every corner of your life. This is why disciplined people appear calm, even in difficult moments. It's not that they have fewer emotions, it's that they have built a life strong enough to support them when emotions rise. Discipline is the scaffolding that holds you together during emotional storms. Let's go deeper into 3 key forms of discipline that directly influence emotional stability. The first is structured routine. A routine is emotional medicine. It gives your mind predictable checkpoints, morning, afternoon, evening. Predictability reduces anxiety. It lowers emotional reactivity. It strengthens confidence. A routine doesn't need to be strict. It simply needs to be consistent. Wake at a stable time. Eat at a stable time. Work at a stable time. Rest at a stable time. Your emotions regulate themselves when your life follows a rhythm. The second is physical discipline. Your body and emotions are deeply connected. When your body is neglected, emotions become unstable. When your body is strengthened, emotions become resilient. Exercise regulates the nervous system. It reduces stress hormones. It increases calmness. It clears mental fog. It stabilizes mood. It increases self-confidence. It strengthens emotional tolerance. A strong body makes it easier to carry emotional weight. The third is discipline of attention. A scattered mind creates scattered emotions. A focused mind creates focused emotions. The ability to direct your attention, to control what you consume, what you think about, what you give energy to, is one of the highest forms of emotional discipline. It means choosing your thoughts instead of letting them choose you. It means protecting your attention from distractions that drain emotional strength. It means redirecting your focus when your mind begins to spiral. Your emotional stability depends heavily on where your attention goes. When you develop these forms of discipline, something powerful happens. Your emotional reactions become smaller, slower, and easier to control. Why? Because discipline gives you control over the one thing emotions respond to most, your internal state. Let's explore a deeper truth. Discipline creates identity, stability. When you do what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it, your identity strengthens. You no longer see yourself as someone controlled by emotion. You see yourself as someone who follows intention. This identity shift reduces emotional chaos dramatically, because when you identify as someone strong, steady, and capable, you behave like it. And when you behave like it, emotions lose their grip. Discipline builds this identity one action at a time. Doing the workout when you're tired, sticking to your routine when you're stressed, finishing tasks even when you feel unmotivated, speaking calmly when you feel irritated, showing up even when you're uncertain. These small acts compound into emotional power. Most people wait for emotional stability before building discipline, but emotional stability only comes from discipline. You do not become calm and then build structure. You build structure and become calm. You do not become strong and then act strong. You act strong and become strong. Discipline is not a result. It is a cause. Let's explore how discipline reduces anxiety. Anxiety thrives in unstructured environments. When your mind doesn't know what comes next, it fills the blanks with fear. Discipline replaces uncertainty with predictability. When your day has order, your mind doesn't panic. When your goals are broken into steps, your mind doesn't freeze. When you follow routines, your mind feels safe. A mind that feels safe is less reactive, less fearful, and less overwhelmed. Let's explore how discipline reduces anger. Anger often comes from frustration. Frustration from disorganization, missed goals, unmet expectations. When life feels chaotic, anger rises. Discipline reduces chaos. It reduces frustration. It reduces the emotional triggers that fuel anger. A disciplined life softens emotional spikes. And then there is sadness. Sadness becomes heavier when life lacks structure. When you have nothing to anchor yourself to, sadness becomes directionless. Discipline gives you something steady to hold, something to wake up for, something to move toward. It doesn't eliminate sadness, but it prevents it from consuming your entire life. And fear. Discipline makes you brave, because you build evidence daily that you can move forward despite fear. Every disciplined action becomes proof that you are capable. Fear loses its strength when you have evidence of your own courage. When you combine discipline with emotional awareness, You become nearly unshakable. You may feel emotions intensely. You may struggle. You may have difficult days, but your foundation will not collapse. Discipline is the quiet strength that holds you together. It is the invisible armor protecting your peace. It is the structure preventing emotional storms from destroying progress. When life feels unpredictable, discipline becomes your calm. Chapter 5. The Science of Calm. Calmness is not a personality trait. Calmness is not a gift. Calmness is not luck, genetics, or natural temperament. Calmness is biology. Calmness is awareness. Calmness is training. And most importantly, calmness is a skill that anyone can build. People think calm people feel less. The truth is, calm people feel just as much as anyone else. They simply understand how to regulate their inner world before it spills outward. In this chapter, you'll learn the science behind calm, why your body reacts the way it does, how your nervous system impacts your emotions, and how simple physical practices can change your emotional life forever. Because emotional stability begins not in the mind, but in the body. Let's begin with something fundamental. Your emotional reactions are biological before they are psychological. Your nervous system fires first. Your thoughts interpret second. When you feel triggered, stressed, scared, overwhelmed, angry, or confused, your body is already reacting before your mind can explain what is happening. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, your breathing changes, your blood pressure rises. Your brain shifts into survival mode. This biological shift is automatic. It is fast, it is powerful, and it is designed to protect you, not destroy you. But in the modern world, the system that evolved to protect you often becomes the very thing that overwhelms you. Let's break down the biology. Your body has two major nervous system states that influence your emotional stability. The sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, and freeze state. The parasympathetic nervous system, the rest, restore, and calm state. Most people live stuck in the first state, constantly tense, constantly rushed, constantly overstimulated, constantly reactive. Emails, deadlines, arguments, notifications, expectations. Your body reacts to all of these as if they were physical threats. This is why people snap easily, why they shut down, why they overthink, why they panic, why they feel overwhelmed. The sympathetic system takes over and calmness disappears. Calmness is not about suppressing this reaction. Calmness is about shifting your nervous system back into balance. This shift is not mental, it is physical. You cannot think your way into calm. You must signal the body to relax so the mind can follow. Let's explore how the body communicates calm. The simplest and most powerful tool is breathing. When you are calm, your breathing is slow, deep, and controlled. When you are stressed, your breathing becomes shallow and fast. Most people believe they breathe incorrectly because they panic. The truth is, they panic because they breathe incorrectly. Your breath is directly connected to your nervous system. Slow, intentional breathing activates the parasympathetic system. This lowers your heart rate, relaxes your muscles, and signals safety. This is why slow breathing feels peaceful. It is not just a feeling, it is your biology shifting into calm. Cold water on your face can do the same. Holding your breath for a moment can do the same. Relaxing your jaw can do the same. Dropping your shoulders can do the same. These actions stimulate the vagus nerve, a powerful biological switch that moves you from stress to calm. You don't need complicated routines. You don't need meditation for hours. You don't need retreats or isolation. You need small physical shifts that tell your body, I am safe, calm down. Let's explore another biological factor, body language. Your emotional state shapes your posture, but your posture also shapes your emotional state. If you want to calm your mind, calm your body. If you want to settle your thoughts, settle your physical stance. When your shoulders are tight, your mind tightens. When your jaw is clenched, your emotions clench. When your breathing is restricted, your thoughts become restricted. When your body is wound up, your mind enters defense mode. Emotional chaos begins in the body long before it arrives in the mind. This is why people who practice daily movement, walking, stretching, exercise, tend to be calmer. Their bodies release tension consistently, which prevents emotional reactions from building up. Calmness is not a moment. It is a state created through consistent physical awareness. Now let's explore the brain. When you're calm, you use the prefrontal cortex, the rational, logical, strategic part of your mind. When you're stressed or emotionally overwhelmed, your brain shifts into the amygdala, the survival center where reactions are fast and reasoning disappears. In the calm state, you think clearly. In the chaotic state, you react impulsively. The difference between these two brain states determines your emotional life. If your amygdala is activated constantly, you feel threatened even when you're not in danger. You interpret neutral situations negatively. You overreact to small problems. You misread people's intentions. You become hypersensitive, hyper-alert, and hyper-emotional. Calmness is the ability to stay in the prefrontal cortex even when stress appears. It is not about being emotionless. It is about staying mentally present. Calmness allows you to choose your response with clarity. But how do you access this calm state consciously? You must learn the skill of awareness. Awareness is noticing the shift, the moment your breathing changes, the moment your chest tightens, the moment your mind speeds up, the moment your muscles tense. These signs are not the chaos, they are early warnings. Emotionally unstable people react to the warning. Emotionally strong people respond to it. When you sense the shift early, you can intervene before the reaction spirals. Awareness gives you control over the biological storm before it becomes emotional chaos. Let's explore something most people ignore. Your environment shapes your calm more than you realize. If your space is cluttered, your mind feels crowded. If your daily habits are irregular, your mind feels unstable. If you are surrounded by noise, your mind becomes noisy. If you constantly consume stimulation, news, social media, arguments, your brain learns to stay in survival mode. Calmness requires reducing unnecessary stimulation. Not eliminating life, just managing what enters your mind. Your brain needs stillness, it needs silence, it needs space. A calm environment supports a calm mind. A chaotic environment fuels a chaotic mind. Now let's explore the mental aspect of calm. Calm thinking means you interpret situations without exaggeration. You see reality clearly instead of emotionally. You respond based on facts, not fears. You make decisions based on strategy, not panic. All calm thinking is a trained perspective. It is the ability to say, this is a challenge, not a disaster. This is discomfort, not danger. This is temporary, not permanent. This is information, not a threat. This shift reduces emotional spikes instantly. Calmness is a combination of biology and interpretation. You calm the body and the mind follows. You calm the mind and the body settles. Let's go deeper into the practices that build calmness into your identity. First, the practice of breath control. Slow, deep breathing, especially exhaling longer than you inhale, instantly activates calm. This is physiological truth, not theory. Second, the practice of physical relaxation. Drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, relax the muscles around your eyes, place your feet firmly on the ground. Your mind cannot panic in a relaxed body. Third, the practice of slowing down your movements. When you move slowly, your nervous system interprets safety. Fast movement signals danger. Slow movement signals stability. Fourth, the practice of grounding. Notice physical sensations. Your feet on the floor, the temperature of the air, the weight of your hands. Grounding brings you out of emotional storms and into the present. Fifth, the practice of mental reframing. Ask yourself, what is really happening here? What is the actual problem? What can I control right now? What is the story my mind is creating? What is the calmer interpretation? This is emotional intelligence in motion. Sixth, the practice of intentional pauses. Pausing delays impulsive reactions. Pausing gives your brain time to switch out of survival mode. Pausing gives you control. Calmness grows in the pauses. Seventh, the practice of consistent routines. Your nervous system loves predictability. Routine creates predictability. Predictability creates calm. Eighth, the practice of lowering stimulation. Fewer distractions, fewer emotional triggers, less noise, more clarity, less rush, more presence. Calmness develops when you remove the unnecessary. And finally, the practice of self-respect. Calmness is a form of self-respect because when you choose calm, you protect your peace, you protect your energy, you protect your clarity, you protect your decision-making power, you protect your emotional stability. Calmness is a boundary you set with the world and with yourself. Calmness says, I will not let the outside world control my inner world. I will not hand my emotions over to chaos. I will not lose myself to temporary storms. I will stay grounded even when life feels unstable. Calmness is not passive. It is powerful. It is intentional. It is disciplined. It is trained. Calmness isn't a mood. It's a trained state. Chapter 6. The Habit of Inner Strength. Strength is not built in dramatic moments. It is built in small, quiet repetitions. The choices you make when no one is watching, the battles you fight within yourself, the discipline you practice when your emotions want you to quit. Inner strength is rarely loud. It is rarely glamorous. It is rarely recognized by the world. But it is the foundation of emotional mastery. In this chapter, you'll learn what inner strength truly is, how it forms, how it grows, and why it becomes one of the greatest stabilizers of your emotional life. Because inner strength is not a reaction. It is a habit. Most people think they become stronger only after big hardships. They imagine strength comes from surviving heartbreak, failure, betrayal, or pain. But real strength is developed long before the crisis. Real strength is built in the choices you make daily. Real strength is the quiet discipline that shapes your identity even when life is calm. Crisis does not create strength, it reveals the strength you already built. Inner strength is the ability to stay steady when emotions rise. It is the ability to act with intention when stress pushes you toward impulse. It is the ability to endure discomfort without collapsing into panic or avoidance. Inner strength is emotional endurance, and endurance is something you train. Let's explore the first truth. Inner strength is built through repetition. Anything you repeat becomes part of you. If you repeatedly react impulsively, impulsivity becomes your default. If you repeatedly avoid discomfort, avoidance becomes your identity. If you repeatedly collapse emotionally, collapse becomes a habit. But the same is true for strength. If you repeatedly pause before reacting, control becomes your habit. If you repeatedly face discomfort, resilience becomes your habit. If you repeatedly push through fear, courage becomes your habit. If you repeatedly choose intention over impulse, maturity becomes your habit. Inner strength is not something you feel. It is something you practice. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Let's break down how emotional endurance develops. When you face a situation that challenges you, conflict, discomfort, stress, uncertainty, your emotions want relief. Your mind wants escape. Your habits want the easiest path. Inner strength is choosing not to escape. It is choosing to stay with the discomfort long enough to grow through it. It is choosing to hold presence when your emotions push you to run. It is choosing to breathe through the rising tension instead of collapsing into it. Each time you stay calm, stay aware, stay intentional, you strengthen your emotional muscles. Most people misunderstand strength. They imagine it as force breaking through problems with intensity. But emotional strength is not force. Emotional strength is endurance. It is the ability to stay steady without being shaken by every emotion that passes through you. Emotions are temporary. Inner strength is permanent. Now, let's explore the second truth. Strength is not built in comfort. Comfort makes you emotionally soft. Comfort makes you fragile. Comfort makes you dependent on things going your way. Inner strength grows when you do difficult things, when you sit with frustration without exploding, when you sit with sadness without collapsing, when you sit with anxiety without running, when you sit with anger without attacking, when you sit with fear without obeying it. Strength is built in the space between emotion and action. That space is where you choose who you are becoming. The stronger you become in that space, the more emotionally unshakable you become. Let's explore how everyday challenges build inner strength. When your mind wants to avoid a task, but you do it anyway, you build strength. When your emotions want to react, but you choose calm, you build strength. When you feel discouraged, but you take one small step, you build strength. When you feel insecure, but you show up anyway, you build strength. When you feel overwhelmed, but you steady your breathing instead of panicking, you build strength. Every act of emotional discipline reinforces the belief, I can handle this, and this belief is the foundation of inner strength. Let's explore something deeper. Strength grows through recovery. You don't become strong by pretending to be strong. You become strong by falling, learning, adjusting, and rising again. Inner strength is not perfection. It is persistence. People who think strength means never breaking misunderstand what strength really is. Inner strength is the ability to recover quickly. Emotionally weak people stay broken for long periods. Emotionally strong people break, reflect, and rebuild. Every time you recover, your resilience improves. Every time you recover, your emotional tolerance increases. Every time you recover, your mind becomes steadier. Recovery creates quiet confidence because you begin to trust yourself. I can fall without losing myself. I can break without staying broken. I can struggle without quitting. I can feel deeply without losing control. This confidence reduces fear dramatically. You stop fearing failure. You stop fearing discomfort. You stop fearing uncertainty. You stop fearing emotions. Because you know you can recover. Now, let's explore a key aspect of emotional strength, resilience through reframing. Your interpretation of difficulty determines its emotional impact. Two people face the same challenge. One collapses, the other grows. The difference is mindset. When you view challenges as attacks, you weaken. When you view challenges as training, you strengthen. When you view discomfort as punishment, you suffer. When you view discomfort as growth, you expand. Reframing is how you train your mind to see situations through the lens of strength instead of fear. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How is this building me? What strength is being trained right now? What will I gain by enduring this moment? How will my future self benefit from this decision? These questions transform emotional weight into emotional training. Strength grows when you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, who am I becoming because of this? Let's explore another source of inner strength, emotional responsibility. People who avoid responsibility stay fragile. People who take responsibility grow strong. Responsibility means recognizing that you control your reactions, you control your effort, you control your interpretation, you control your choices. Responsibility takes power away from emotions and gives power back to you. It reduces helplessness, it reduces emotional blame, it reduces feeling like a victim of your feelings. Responsibility says, my emotions are real, but my actions are my own. I decide how to respond. I decide who I become. I decide what this moment means. This mindset builds inner stability more than anything else. Now let's explore the habit aspect of strength. Inner strength becomes a habit when repeated daily, not occasionally, not when convenient, not only during crisis. Daily. Strength becomes a habit when you make small, consistent choices that align with your highest self. Waking up when you said you would, finishing what you started, holding your boundaries, staying calm during conflict, choosing discipline over impulse, respecting your own values, keeping your promises to yourself. These daily acts build emotional authority. Over time, you begin to feel a shiftless panic, more clarity, less overthinking, more presence, less reactivity, more control, less fear, more confidence. Strength becomes your default state. And then something powerful happens. Life stops overwhelming you. People stop controlling you. Your emotions stop dominating you. Your doubts stop limiting you. You stop being easily shaken. You stop being easily triggered. You stop being easily discouraged. Your inner world becomes steady. This steadiness is not indifference. It is not numbness. It is not emotional distance. It is grounded emotional intelligence. It is the ability to feel deeply while staying centered. It is the ability to experience discomfort without losing stability. It is the ability to move through hardship with quiet confidence. Let's explore the final truth. Inner strength is identity. When you repeat strong actions, you become a strong person. When you repeat resilient thoughts, you become a resilient person. When you repeatedly choose calm over chaos, you become a calm person. When you repeatedly choose growth over avoidance, you become a developed person. Your identity follows your habits, and your habits create your emotional world. Strength is the quiet accumulation of choices that align with who you want to become. So remember, you build inner strength when you stay instead of escape. You build inner strength when you act instead of react. You build inner strength when you recover instead of collapse. You build inner strength when you grow instead of complain. You build inner strength when you expand instead of shrink. You build inner strength when you choose long-term stability over short-term comfort. Strong minds are built in quiet repetition. Chapter 7. Reprogram your inner voice. Every person carries a voice inside their mind, a voice that whispers, comments, judges, guides, criticizes, encourages, or destroys. This voice becomes the background soundtrack of your life, so constant that you barely notice it, yet so powerful that it shapes everything you feel and everything you do. Your inner voice can be your greatest source of strength or your greatest source of suffering. Most people never question their inner voice. They assume it is truth. They assume it is accurate. They assume it is who they really are. But your inner voice is not your identity. It is a collection of your past experiences, your fears, your beliefs, your upbringing, and your emotional patterns. It is learned, absorbed, shaped, and it can be changed. Reprogramming your inner voice is one of the most transformative steps in emotional mastery, because the way you speak to yourself determines how you handle your emotions, your challenges, your relationships, and your future. This chapter is about changing the voice inside you, from criticism to command, from fear to direction, from doubt to clarity. Let's begin with a simple truth. Your inner voice was not born with you, it was built. You absorbed it from your environment, from your parents' tone, from your teacher's expectations, from your failures, from your shame, from your successes, from the people you wanted approval from the moments you felt small, from the moments you felt misunderstood, from every emotional wound you didn't know how to heal. This voice became your internal narrator. If it was shaped in environments of fear, pressure, or criticism, it became harsh and demanding. If it was shaped through encouragement and support, it became grounded and empowering. But here is the key. Regardless of how your inner voice was formed, you can rewrite it. And rewriting it will change your emotional life. Let's examine how your inner voice influences your emotions. 2. When your inner voice is harsh, everything becomes heavier. Mistakes feel unforgivable. Challenges feel impossible. Setbacks feel personal. Small problems feel like disasters. You become emotionally fragile because your mind attacks you instead of supporting you. When your inner voice is balanced and disciplined, everything becomes lighter. Mistakes become lessons. Challenges become training. Setbacks become temporary. Problems become manageable. You become emotionally strong because your mind becomes your ally, not your enemy. Emotional stability begins with the internal language. If you do not control the tone of your inner voice will control the tone of your life. Let's examine the 3 forms your inner voice usually takes. First, the critic. This voice judges you. It magnifies your flaws. It compares you to others. It revisits your failures. It demands perfection. It punishes mistakes. It uses shame as motivation. It creates self-doubt, insecurity, and emotional instability. Second, the follower. This voice reacts instead of leads. It obeys emotions, fears, impulses, and external pressure. It adapts to chaos instead of creating structure. It has no direction, only reactions. This voice creates anxiety, overthinking, and mood-driven decisions. Third, the commander. This voice is grounded, calm, disciplined, and strategic. It speaks with clarity, not fear. It guides instead of judges. It directs instead of reacts. It corrects instead of insults. It leads instead of follows. The commander is the voice you build. The critic and follower are voices you may have inherited. Your emotional life changes when the commander becomes louder than the critic and wiser than the follower. Let's explore how to reprogram your inner voice. The first step is awareness. You must begin noticing how you talk to yourself, noticing when your inner voice becomes harsh, noticing when it exaggerates problems, noticing when it creates fear, noticing when it attacks your confidence, noticing when it tells you that you can't, won't, or aren't enough. Your inner voice often lies. It lies to protect you. It lies because of old wounds. It lies because it learned fear before it learned courage. Awareness exposes the lie. The second step is intervention. When the inner critic speaks, you don't obey it. You challenge it. You question it. You interrupt it. If your inner voice says you always fail, you respond internally. That is not true. I have succeeded before. If your inner voice says you're not good enough, you respond, I am improving and that is enough. If your inner voice says people will judge you, you respond, their judgment is not my truth. Intervention retrains the mind. The third step is replacement. You do not silence the inner voice, you replace its language. You replace exaggeration with accuracy. You replace fear with direction. You replace panic with clarity. You replace self-attacks with self-instruction. Instead of saying, I can't handle this, say, I can handle this step by step. Instead of saying, this is a disaster, say, this is a challenge. Instead of saying, I knew this would go wrong, say, I will adjust and improve. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, say, I am capable and still growing. This is not empty positivity. This is emotional leadership. You are not telling yourself fantasies, you are giving your mind practical direction. The fourth step is tone control. Even when correcting yourself, the tone matters. A harsh tone creates emotional resistance. A calm tone creates emotional cooperation. Speak to yourself the way a strong mentor would. Firm, clear, steady, encouraging, honest. Not sugary, not soft, not fake. Strong. A strong tone creates a strong emotional state. The fifth step is command language. Command language is direct, simple, and strategic. It tells your emotions what to do instead of being controlled by them. Examples: slow down, focus, breathe, stay present. Don't react yet. Hold your position. Act with intention. This is temporary. Respond with clarity. Stay steady. These commands shift your nervous system out of emotional chaos. They reduce impulsivity. They increase calm. They activate the rational brain. They restore control. Command language strengthens emotional discipline. The sixth step is consistency. Reprogramming your inner voice is not a one-day task. It is a daily training. Every moment you correct your inner voice, you strengthen the new pattern. Every moment you practice command language, you reinforce emotional maturity. Every moment you challenge old beliefs, you weaken their power. Little by little, the critic quiets. Little by little, the follower fades. Little by little, the commander becomes your default state. Now let's explore how your inner voice affects your identity. Your inner voice decides whether you see yourself as strong or weak, capable or incapable, resilient or fragile. Identity is not built from achievements. It is built from self-talk. If your inner voice tells you that you're weak, you will act weak. If your inner voice tells you that you're incapable, you will avoid challenges. If your inner voice tells you that you're destined to fail, you will sabotage opportunities. Identity follows inner dialogue. If you change the dialogue, you change the identity. And when the identity changes, your entire emotional life transforms. Let's explore the impact of a reprogrammed inner voice. You begin to feel more confident, not from ego, but from clarity. You begin to make decisions more easily, not from pressure, but from direction. You begin to calm yourself faster, not from suppression, but from understanding. You begin to handle conflict better, not from hardness, but from control. You begin to break emotional patterns, not from avoidance, but from awareness. People will notice a difference, not in what you say to them, but in what you say to yourself. Your inner voice shapes your presence. It shapes your behavior. It shapes your resilience. It shapes your emotional world. A strong outer life comes from a strong inner voice. Let's explore the final truth of this chapter. Your inner voice becomes your internal environment, and you live in that environment every day. If your inner environment is hostile, you will feel unsafe everywhere. If your inner environment is supportive, you will feel grounded everywhere. If your inner environment is chaotic, you will feel overwhelmed even in calm moments. If your inner environment is disciplined, you will carry steadiness even in stressful moments. Reprogramming your inner voice means redesigning the emotional home you live in. It means creating a voice that guides you, a voice that strengthens you, a voice that leads you. Change the voice inside and the world outside follows. Chapter 8. Patience and Strategic Silence. Patience is not waiting. Silence is not weakness. Stillness is not passivity. Most people misunderstand these concepts. They see patience as doing nothing. They see silence as losing the argument. They see calmness as surrender. They see delayed reactions as lack of strength. But the truth is the opposite. Patience is deliberate power. Silence is strategic protection. Stillness is emotional intelligence. Delayed response is maturity. In this chapter, you'll learn how calm timing and controlled silence become tools of emotional mastery, how they save relationships, protect your energy, sharpen your judgment, and elevate your presence in a world full of noise and impulsive reactions. Let's begin with the foundation. Patience is emotional distance between stimulus and response. It is the space where you regain control. Most emotional damage happens because people react immediately. They speak while triggered. They decide while angry. They move while afraid. They respond while insecure. Instant reactions are almost always emotional reactions, and emotional reactions often create regret. Patience interrupts this pattern. Patience allows your body to calm before your mouth speaks. Patience allows your mind to settle before your decisions solidify. Patience allows your emotions to pass before your behavior becomes permanent. You are not judged by what you feel, you are judged by how you respond. Patience protects you from turning temporary emotions into long-term consequences. Let's explore deeper. People think patience is passive. It is not. Patience is active restraint. It is choosing not to be controlled by your emotions. It is choosing timing over impulse. It is choosing strategy over chaos. Patience is the strength to wait until you can respond with clarity instead of reactivity. Every moment you choose patience instead of impulse, you expand your emotional authority. Now, let's examine silence. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. People imagine silence as weakness, avoidance, or fear. But silence used intentionally is one of the most powerful emotional tools you have. Silence protects your energy. Silence protects your dignity. Silence protects your inner clarity. Silence protects your strategic advantage. You do not need to respond to everything. You do not need to correct everyone. You do not need to explain yourself constantly. You do not need to react to provocation. Strategic silence is emotional discipline. It tells the world, my peace is more important than proving a point. My clarity matters more than your chaos. My energy is not available for every argument. My self-respect is stronger than my impulse. Silence becomes strength the moment you realize you don't owe everyone access to your reactions. Let's break down how patience and silence work together. Patience gives you time, silence gives you space. Time to understand, space to observe, time to cool down, space to think clearly, time to interpret, space to choose. Patience stabilizes your emotions. Silence stabilizes your decisions. Together, they form emotional intelligence in action. Let's examine situations where patience and silence completely change the outcome. First, during conflict. Most arguments escalate because both people react at the same time. Voices rise, emotions rise, egos rise, clarity disappears. But one person practicing patience breaks the cycle, pausing before reacting, breathing before responding, listening before defending. Patience turns conflict into communication. Silence turns noise into understanding. People who master this become respected not because they dominate conversations, but because they control themselves. Second, during criticism. Criticism triggers insecurity. The instinct is to defend, explain, justify, or attack. But silence during criticism shows strength. It shows self-control. It shows confidence. It shows stability. Silence gives you time to evaluate whether the criticism is accurate, biased, or irrelevant. Not every criticism deserves a reaction. Silence filters truth from noise. Third, during emotional triggers. When emotions spike, the brain moves into survival mode. Reason disappears. Impulses take over. Patience slows everything down. Silence prevents emotional explosions. Your ability to pause when triggered is one of the highest forms of emotional intelligence. Fourth, during negotiation. Negotiation is not about who speaks more. It is about who listens more. Silence makes people reveal information. Silence creates pressure. Silence increases your influence. People often rush to fill silence because they feel uncomfortable. But those who remain calm in silence take control of the dynamic. Patience creates better outcomes. Silence creates better leverage. Fifth, during disappointment or rejection. When life hurts, emotions spike. You want answers. You want closure. You want to react. But immediate reactions are often driven by pain, not truth. Patience gives you time to feel without acting irrationally. Silence gives you space to process without humiliating yourself. Strong people do not chase closure. They allow clarity to come with time. Now, let's explore the psychological benefits of strategic silence. Silence reduces emotional arousal. When you stop speaking, your nervous system relaxes. Your breathing slows. Your heart rate lowers. Your body returns to calm. Silence allows the rational brain to take over again. Your thoughts reorganize. Your perspective becomes broader. Your interpretation becomes clearer. Silence is healing. It resets the mind. Most people fear silence because silence reveals truth. When the noise stops, you must face yourself, your emotions, your thoughts, your patterns, your unresolved issues. But facing this truth is where emotional growth begins. Now, let's examine the emotional benefits of patience. Patience increases tolerance for discomfort. It increases your ability to hold emotional tension without collapsing. It increases your ability to navigate difficult conversations. It increases your ability to make long-term decisions. It increases your ability to maintain calm under pressure. Patience builds emotional stamina. Without patience, every difficulty feels unbearable. With patience, difficulty becomes manageable. Patience stabilizes your emotional world in ways nothing else can. Let's go deeper. Patience and silence create authority. Authority over yourself, authority over your emotions, authority over your reactions, authority over your behavior, authority over your presence. People who master patience appear unshakable. People who master silence appear powerful. People who master both become emotionally untouchable. Because the one who controls the pace controls the interaction. The one who controls the reaction controls the outcome. The one who controls their silence controls their image. The one who controls their timing controls their life. Let's explore how to practice patience and silence. First, the practice of pausing. Pause before replying. Pause before reacting. Pause before correcting. Pause before criticizing. Pause before escalating. A 5-second pause can prevent a lifetime of regret. Second, the practice of breathing. When emotions rise, breathe slowly. Long exhale, steady inhale. Breathing creates space. Space creates clarity. Third, the practice of listening. Listen without preparing your defense. Listen without interrupting. Listen without assuming. Listening is silence with intention. Fourth, the practice of delayed decisions. Do not decide important things in emotional states. Decide when calm returns. Decide when clarity returns. Decide when your mind is stable. Fifth, the practice of selective speech. Say less. Speak only when necessary. Speak only when calm. Speak only when purposeful. Your words have more power when you use them sparingly. Sixth, the practice of emotional distance. Create space between what happened and what you feel about it. This distance is maturity. Seventh, the practice of timing. Not every moment is the right moment. Patience ensures you choose the best moment, not the emotional moment. Silence ensures you protect yourself until that moment arrives. Now, let's explore the identity shift this chapter teaches. Once you master patience, you no longer feel rushed by life. You no longer feel controlled by moods. You no longer feel pressured to respond quickly. You no longer feel trapped by emotional chaos. Once you master silence, you no longer give people power over your reactions. You no longer explain yourself unnecessarily. You no longer fall into arguments beneath you. You no longer reveal your emotions to those who misuse them. Patience is self-control. Silence is self-respect. Together, they create emotional authority. You become the person who doesn't react instantly, who doesn't fall for emotional traps, who doesn't get dragged into chaos, who doesn't feel intimidated by pressure, who doesn't allow anyone else to control your emotional climate. This is emotional maturity at its highest level. The world becomes easier when you stop reacting so quickly. Life becomes clearer when you stop speaking so much. Your emotions become calmer when you stop feeding them with impulsive energy. Silence is not weakness. It's mastery in disguise. Patience is not waiting. It's timing with wisdom. Chapter 9. Energy Management over Emotion Management. Most people try to control their emotions directly. They try to stop feeling angry. They try to stop feeling anxious. They try to stop feeling sad, irritated, overwhelmed, or insecure. But emotions cannot be controlled by force. You cannot simply think your way out of emotional storms. You cannot demand calm from a mind that is exhausted. You cannot expect stability from a body running on empty. Emotions are not the root. Energy is the root. When your energy is low, your emotions become unstable. When your energy is drained, you react more than you respond. When your energy is scattered, your mind becomes chaotic. When your energy is unprotected, you feel pulled in every direction. This chapter will show you a powerful truth. You don't manage emotions by fighting emotions. You manage emotions by managing energy. Once your energy is balanced, your emotions naturally follow. Let's begin with something simple but often ignored. Your emotional state is deeply connected to your physical state. When you are tired, everything feels heavier. When you are hungry, everything feels irritating. When you are overstimulated, everything feels overwhelming. When you are mentally drained, everything feels dramatic. When you are sleep-deprived, everything feels like a threat. Most emotional chaos is actually energy chaos. Your emotions are signals. Your energy is the foundation. If the foundation is weak, the signals become louder. Let's explore how energy and emotions connect. Your energy affects your patience. Low energy, low tolerance, high reactivity. Your energy affects your confidence. Low energy, low self-esteem, high insecurity. Your energy affects your perspective. Low energy, pessimism, overthinking. Your energy affects your boundaries. Low energy, people-pleasing, emotional collapse. Your energy affects your discipline. Low energy, low motivation, high avoidance. People often believe they have emotional problems when they actually have energy problems. Your mind is not fragile. Your energy is depleted. Let's examine the main sources of energy drain and how they shape your emotional world. First, fatigue. Fatigue makes you impulsive. It makes you irritable. It makes you overreact to small triggers. It makes you interpret situations negatively. It makes you shut down instead of think clearly. A tired mind is an emotional mind. This is why rest is not laziness. Rest is emotional regulation. Second, poor sleep. When you don't sleep enough, the emotional part of your brain becomes overactive, while the rational part becomes underactive. This creates emotional volatility. You become more sensitive, more reactive, more defensive, more overwhelmed. Sleep is the foundation of emotional stability. Without it, even small tasks feel unbearable. Third, overstimulation. Constant notifications, constant noise, constant dopamine spikes, constant chaos in your environment. This keeps your nervous system in a state of hyper-alertness. You become jumpy, anxious, distracted, unfocused. You lose the ability to feel calm. The mind cannot be stable if it never gets stillness. Fourth, mental overload. Too many responsibilities, too many decisions, too many unresolved problems, too much pressure. Your mind becomes a crowded room. In a crowded mind, emotions have no space to breathe. They spill over into your behavior. Mental overload leads directly to emotional overload. Fifth, emotional labor. Absorbing other people's problems, trying to fix everything, carrying everyone's expectations, being the emotional anchor for others. This drains your internal battery faster than anything else. When your emotional energy is drained, you become numb, detached, or explosive. Sixth, misaligned environments. Toxic people, negative spaces, clutter, constant conflict, unpredictable routines. Your environment shapes your emotional energy more than you realize. If the environment drains you, your emotions become unstable. And finally, lack of renewal. No quiet time, no healthy solitude, no hobbies, no nature, no meaningful breaks. Without renewal, your emotional energy slowly collapses. Now let's explore the opposite, the sources of energy that increase emotional stability. First, rest and recovery. A well-rested body creates a calm mind. A calm mind creates stable emotions. Recovery is not optional. It is part of emotional strength. Second, movement. Walking, stretching, training, exercise of any kind. Movement regulates the nervous system, releases emotional tension, and sharpens focus. A body in motion becomes a mind in balance. Third, breath and presence. Breathing slowly, grounding your awareness, centering yourself. These practices signal safety to the brain. When your body feels safe, your emotions soften. Fourth, healthy solitude. Solitude is where you hear your own thoughts without interference. It resets your emotional boundaries. It cleans your mental space. It charges your inner clarity. Solitude is emotional maintenance. Fifth, meaningful connection. Supportive relationships strengthen your emotional foundation. Healthy connection raises your energy. Unhealthy connection drains it. Choose wisely who gets access to your emotional world. Sixth, structure. A structured day prevents emotional chaos. Routine reduces decision fatigue. Consistency creates internal order. Emotions thrive in order. They become chaotic in disorder. Seventh, purpose and alignment. When your actions match your values, you feel energized. When your life misaligns with your truth, you feel drained. Energy flows where meaning flows. Let's explore a powerful concept. You can't regulate emotions that come from an exhausted system. Trying to control your emotions while your energy is depleted is like trying to stand still in a storm. You don't fight the storm. You strengthen the structure. When your energy is high, your emotions lose their power to dominate you. You respond more intentionally. You think more clearly. You feel more centered. Your emotional stability increases automatically. Let's break down how managing energy stabilizes emotions. When your energy is balanced, anger becomes assertiveness. Fear becomes information. Sadness becomes reflection. Stress becomes action. Anxiety becomes awareness. Energy transforms the emotional expression. Your emotional life becomes more grounded, not because you force control, but because your internal state supports clarity. Now, let's explore emotional triggers through the lens of energy. People think triggers are caused by events, but many triggers are actually caused by low energy. You're not irritated because of the comment, you're irritated because you're exhausted. You're not overwhelmed because the task is hard. You're overwhelmed because your energy is low. You're not anxious because the situation is dangerous. You're anxious because your system is overstimulated. Understanding this gives you emotional freedom. Instead of fighting the emotion, you fix the energy. Let's explore emotional boundaries through energy. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about protecting your energy. If someone drains you, your emotions become unstable around them. If you overgive, your emotional balance collapses. If you don't protect your time, your mental clarity disappears. Energy management is boundaries. Every boundary is an energy decision. Now, let's examine how to manage energy practically. First, sleep like your emotional stability depends on it, because it does. Second, move your body daily, even lightly. Third, limit overstimulation, reduce noise, notifications, and digital addiction. Fourth, create small pockets of stillness throughout the day. Fifth, choose people who elevate your emotional energy, not drain it. Sixth, clean your physical environments. External clutter creates internal clutter. Seventh, simplify your tasks. Complexity drains energy quickly. Eighth, protect mornings and evenings. These are emotional reset periods. Ninth, avoid unnecessary emotional labor. Say no, step back, stay balanced. 10th, eat in ways that stabilize energy, not spike it. When your energy is high and stable, your emotional life feels easier. Problems feel smaller. Triggers feel softer. Situations feel clearer. People's behavior feels less personal. Your mind feels quieter. You cannot think clearly when you are tired. You cannot stay calm when you are drained. You cannot be confident when your energy is collapsing. You cannot have emotional authority without energetic authority. Energy is the foundation of emotional mastery. Most people try to fix their emotions without fixing their energy. And that is why they remain stuck. When you learn to manage your energy, your emotions begin to regulate themselves. You no longer have to fight your feelings. You no longer react from exhaustion. You no longer misinterpret situations. You no longer fall into emotional spirals. A well-managed energy system creates a well-managed emotional world. Guard your energy, and your emotions will guard themselves. Chapter 10, Boundaries and Self-Respect. Emotional mastery is impossible without boundaries, because boundaries are not walls, they are definitions. They define what you accept, what you allow, what you protect, and what you refuse to carry. Self-respect begins with boundaries. Peace depends on boundaries. Clarity grows from boundaries. Strength is sustained through boundaries. Without boundaries, you live emotionally exposed, open to manipulation, drained by people, overwhelmed by demands, and constantly pulled away from yourself. This chapter is about understanding boundaries not as a defense mechanism, but as a form of self-leadership. Boundaries are not about controlling others. Boundaries are about controlling your access, your time, your emotional limits, and your inner space. Boundaries tell people how to treat you. Self-respect enforces that standard. Let's begin with the simplest truth. People do not cross your boundaries. You allow them to. Not because you're weak, not because you want to be mistreated, but because you've been trained, emotionally, culturally, or through past experiences to tolerate more than your soul can handle. Some people learned early in life that pleasing others prevents conflict. Some learned that silence keeps relationships intact. Some learned that sacrificing themselves earns love or approval. Some learned that their needs were too much, so they stopped expressing them. These patterns form early. They follow you into adulthood. They become your emotional blueprint, quiet but powerful. But boundaries can be rebuilt. Self-respect can be restored. Emotional balance can be reclaimed. Let's explore the cost of weak boundaries. When you lack boundaries, you feel drained. Because you give more than you receive. You say yes when you want to say no. You explain yourself when you don't need to. You tolerate disrespect because confrontation feels scary. You absorb energy that is not yours. You carry responsibilities that do not belong to you. Each of these actions erodes self-respect. Weak boundaries create emotional exhaustion because your energy leaks into places that do not nourish you. Weak boundaries create resentment because you feel used, unseen, or undervalued. Weak boundaries create confusion because you lose the ability to distinguish your emotions from others. Weak boundaries create instability because your sense of worth becomes dependent on external approval. Weak boundaries create guilt because you feel bad for choosing yourself. You cannot feel peaceful when your boundaries are weak. You cannot feel stable when your energy is unprotected. Now, let's explore the opposite, the power of healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries create emotional clarity. You know what belongs to you and what doesn't. You know what responsibilities are yours and what should be returned. You know what energy is healthy and what is harmful. Healthy boundaries create self-respect. Every boundary is a message to yourself. My well-being matters. My time matters. My feelings matter. My peace matters. Healthy boundaries create stability. Your emotions become steadier because your environment becomes safer. Healthy boundaries create healthier relationships. Relationships thrive when expectations are clear, when respect is mutual, when both people know the limits. Healthy boundaries create strength, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the calm, steady kind that comes from knowing you don't have to abandon yourself to keep others happy. Let's explore the types of boundaries that shape emotional life. First, emotional boundaries. These protect your inner world. They prevent you from absorbing other people's emotions. They give you space to feel without being flooded. An emotional boundary sounds like, I won't carry emotions that aren't mine. I am not responsible for soothing everyone. I do not need to respond instantly. I will not let guilt manipulate me. Second, time boundaries. These protect your hours and your energy. They prevent people from consuming your day with demands. A time boundary sounds like, I'm not available right now. I can only stay for 1 hour. I need time for myself. I will get back to you when I can. Third, communication boundaries. These protect how people speak to you. A communication boundary sounds like, do not raise your voice at me. I'm willing to discuss this calmly. I won't stay in conversations that become disrespectful. Fourth, behavioral boundaries. These define what actions you accept and what you refuse. A behavioral boundary sounds like, I don't tolerate passive aggression. I don't accept dishonesty. I don't engage in gossip. I don't let people disrespect my values. Fifth, personal boundaries. These define your limits, your preferences, your comfort zones. A personal boundary sounds like, I'm not comfortable with that. I need space. I prefer privacy. I'm not available for emotional dumping. Boundaries are not just external, they are internal rules that shape the life you allow yourself to live. Now, let's explore the fear behind boundaries. People fear losing relationships. People fear disappointing others. People fear conflict. People fear being judged. People fear being labeled selfish. But boundaries do not destroy relationships. Boundaries reveal which relationships were real. The relationships that fall apart when you set boundaries were built on your lack of them. You are not losing people. You are losing illusions. Setting boundaries does not make you selfish. It makes you emotionally responsible. You cannot pour into life when your own cup is empty. You cannot be present when you are exhausted. You cannot be strong when you feel drained. You cannot be kind when your kindness is being misused. Boundaries protect your humanity. Let's explore how boundaries and self-respect influence emotional mastery. When you set boundaries, your emotions become easier to manage because your energy is no longer being drained by people and situations that take without giving. When you set boundaries, your confidence increases because you begin to trust your own voice. You stop abandoning yourself. You stop bending to please others. When you set boundaries, your anxiety decreases because your life becomes predictable and grounded. You no longer carry unexpected emotional burdens. When you set boundaries, your emotional reactions soften because you no longer feel controlled by the world around you. When you set boundaries, your relationships improve because respect becomes the foundation. Boundaries make you emotionally free. Let's break down how to build boundaries in practice. First, know your limits. You cannot set boundaries if you don't know what drains you, what hurts you, and what overwhelms you. Awareness is the first step. Second, communicate simply and calmly. Boundaries do not require explanation. A boundary can be one sentence. I'm not available for that. That doesn't work for me. Please don't speak to me like that. I need space. Third, stop over-explaining. Over-explaining is a sign of weak self-respect. You are not applying for permission. You are stating a limit. Fourth, stay consistent. Boundaries are not tested when they are spoken. They are tested when they are challenged. If you break your own boundary, others will too. Fifth, accept discomfort. Setting boundaries will feel uncomfortable at first, not because boundaries are wrong, but because self-abandonment has been your habit. Growth always feels unfamiliar. Sixth, let consequences be real. If someone repeatedly disrespects your boundary, you walk away, reduce access, or remove privileges. A boundary without consequences is not a boundary. It is a suggestion. And seventh, protect your peace like a responsibility. Your peace is your emotional oxygen. Without it, everything else suffocates. Now, let's explore the deeper connection between boundaries and identity. When you set boundaries, you redefine who you are. You shift from someone who tolerates too much to someone who values themselves deeply. You shift from someone who seeks approval to someone who seeks alignment. You shift from someone who is emotionally reactive to someone who is emotionally grounded. Self-respect becomes your foundation, and with self-respect comes emotional authority. Your boundaries become your shield. Your voice becomes steady. Your presence becomes confident. Your energy becomes cleaner. Your emotions become clearer. Your relationships become healthier. People begin to treat you differently because you treat yourself differently. People begin to respect you because you respect yourself. Boundaries don't push people away. They protect your peace. Chapter 11, The Long Game of Emotional Maturity. Emotional maturity is not a destination. It is not a moment of sudden transformation. It is not a single breakthrough that changes everything overnight. Emotional maturity is a long game, a slow evolution, a steady refinement, a continual unfolding of deeper awareness, stronger discipline, and clearer perception. You do not wake up emotionally mature. You grow into it one decision at a time. In this chapter, we will explore emotional maturity as a lifelong process, why it requires patience, why it expands with time, why it strengthens through experience, and why it becomes the silent mark of true self-mastery. Let's begin with the first truth. Emotional maturity is not about how much you know, it's about how consistently you apply what you know. You can read every book, consume every insight, learn every technique, but maturity is built only through repetition. Knowing is intellectual, doing is transformational. Emotional maturity is doing the right thing even when the wrong thing is easier. It is choosing clarity over impulse. It is choosing long-term peace over short-term relief. It is choosing truth over comfort. It is choosing responsibility over blame. These choices become your identity. Let's explore the foundations of the long game. 1. Maturity requires time. You cannot rush emotional evolution. You cannot accelerate wisdom. You cannot skip the inner work. Maturity grows through cycles, moments of awareness, moments of confusion, moments of clarity, moments of contradiction, moments of growth, moments of setback. Each cycle adds something, a new perspective, a new understanding, a new layer of resilience. Time gives you the distance to see patterns. Time gives you space to understand reactions. Time gives you the ability to interpret your own evolution. Growth becomes visible only when you look back and realize, I no longer respond the way I used to. That realization is maturity. 2. Maturity requires emotional accountability. Emotionally immature people blame everyone except themselves. They blame the world, the situation, the circumstances, the people, the past. Accountability is the moment you say, my response is my responsibility. My healing is my responsibility. My behavior is my responsibility. My growth is my responsibility. Accountability removes excuses. It removes victimhood. It removes helplessness. Accountability gives you power. 3. Maturity requires delayed gratification. Emotionally immature people chase instant relief, the quick reaction, the quick revenge, the quick escape, the quick comfort. Emotionally mature people play the long game, the long conversation, the long strategy, the long healing, the long stability. They understand that anything meaningful takes time, self-control, identity, relationships, peace. Maturity is choosing what matters over what satisfies. 4. Maturity requires emotional neutrality. Neutrality is not indifference. Neutrality is clarity. It is the ability to observe emotions without drowning in them, to observe situations without rushing into assumptions, to observe conflict without personalizing everything. Neutrality gives you a wider lens, a clearer picture, a calmer interpretation. Maturity is the ability to pause long enough to see the full truth. 5. Maturity requires choosing growth over comfort. Comfort keeps you stuck. Comfort protects your wounds but prevents healing. Comfort protects your fears but limits your life. Emotional maturity is built by stepping into discomfort, having necessary conversations, setting difficult boundaries, breaking unhealthy patterns, releasing old versions of yourself, facing the truth of your own behavior. Growth always feels uncomfortable because it stretches the parts of you that want to remain small. 6. Maturity requires understanding emotional seasons. There will be seasons of strength and seasons of fragility, seasons of clarity and seasons of confusion, seasons of progress and seasons of plateau. Immature minds panic in these cycles. Mature minds understand that emotional life has rhythms. Not every day will carry wisdom. Not every moment will reflect clarity. Not every situation will be handled perfectly. Maturity accepts imperfection as part of the process. 7. Maturity requires outgrowing old versions of yourself. You are not meant to remain the same. You are not meant to hold the same beliefs, the same responses, the same emotional patterns. Emotional maturity is shedding the versions of you that no longer align with your truth. The version who needed approval, the version who tolerated disrespect, the version who reacted impulsively, the version who feared conflict, the version who blamed others for inner pain, the version who mistook attachment for love, the version who confused noise with importance. Growth requires letting go before becoming. 8. Maturity requires learning through repetition, not perfection. You will make mistakes, you will repeat patterns, you will react emotionally, You will lose control. You will fall back into old habits. This is not failure, this is practice. Maturity is not measured by how often you fall, but by how quickly you realign. You catch yourself sooner. You correct yourself sooner. You return to your truth sooner. Faster recovery is maturity. 9. Maturity requires emotional humility. Humility is the ability to say, I was wrong. I overreacted. I misunderstood. I need to change. I can do better. Humility opens the door to healing and growth. Ego closes it. Emotionally immature people protect their ego at all costs. Emotionally mature people protect their growth at all costs. Humility is the strength to prioritize truth over pride. 10. Maturity requires consistency. Anyone can be mature on a good day. Anyone can remain calm when life is easy. Anyone can act wise when emotions are low. Real maturity shows up in stressful moments, when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, when you're triggered, when life feels unfair. Consistency is the difference between emotional improvement and emotional transformation. Consistency turns knowledge into identity. 11. Maturity requires awareness of consequences. Immature minds live in the moment. Mature minds understand the ripple effect. A single reaction can alter a relationship. A single word can change the tone. A single decision can shift the path. A single choice can create months of regret or months of growth. Mature people think before acting, not out of fear, but out of responsibility. 12. Maturity requires accepting that some things take years. Emotional wounds take time. Identity shifts take time. Confidence takes time. Boundaries take time. Self-respect takes time. Healing takes time. OT. And the long game requires patience with yourself. You will have days when you feel emotionally strong. You will have days when you feel fragile. Both are part of the journey. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progression. The long game of emotional maturity changes everything. You stop reacting to every emotion. You stop demanding instant answers. You stop taking everything personally. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop repeating old cycles. You stop letting fear dictate your decisions. Instead, you respond with clarity. You choose with intention. You interpret with wisdom. You observe with neutrality. You protect your peace. You hold your standards. You lead yourself. The longer you play this game, the more natural it becomes. You grow calmer. You grow wiser. You grow stronger. You grow steadier. Your emotional world shifts from chaotic to grounded. Your identity shifts from reactive to intentional. Your presence shifts from unstable to powerful. And people notice, even if you never speak about it. Emotional maturity is the quiet confidence of time. Chapter 12. The Calm Commander. Emotional mastery is not about suppressing how you feel. It is not about becoming numb, distant, or unaffected. It is not about pretending life never shakes you. Emotional mastery is becoming the kind of person who feels everything yet remains in command. The calm commander is not born, they are built. Built through awareness, through discipline, through patience, through boundaries, through perspective, through inner strength, through consistency. This final chapter is the integration of everything you've learned, the moment where emotional skills become emotional identity. Let's begin with the truth at the heart of this chapter. The calm commander does not avoid storms, they navigate them. Life will always bring uncertainty, conflict, stress, temptation, pressure, fear, disappointment, and emotional waves. You cannot stop the storms, but you can determine who you are inside them. A storm can drown you, or a storm can reveal your power. The difference is emotional command. Let's explore what defines the calm commander. 1. They respond, they don't react. Reacting is instinct, responding is intelligence. Where others rush into conflict, the calm commander pauses. Where others escalate, the calm commander observes. Where others panic, the calm commander breathes. Where others let fear dictate actions, the calm commander makes calculated choices. This is not slowness, this is mastery. A moment of calm can prevent months of damage. The calm commander knows that emotional speed creates emotional mistakes. 2. They feel deeply without collapsing. The calm commander does not suppress emotion. They notice it. They name it. They allow it. They separate it from behavior. They do not fear emotions because they understand that an emotion is a signal, not a master. Anger is information. Fear is a warning. Sadness is reflection. Stress is pressure. Jealousy is insecurity. Anxiety is imbalance. The calm commander reads emotions the way a captain reads weather. They interpret without drowning. They adjust without panicking. 3. They lead themselves before leading anything else. Many people try to control situations, control outcomes, control others. The calm commander begins with self-control, the only form of control that truly exists. They regulate their energy. They regulate their thoughts. They regulate their reactions. They regulate their presence. Self-command is the root of emotional authority. When you lead yourself, life follows your direction. 4. They create emotional space. The calm commander does not suffocate themselves with pressure. They do not rush decisions. They do not jump to conclusions. They do not feed overthinking. They create space between stimulus and response, space to breathe, space to interpret, space to choose. Space is where emotional chaos dissolves and emotional clarity appears. 5. They choose consistency over intensity. Anyone can be calm once. Anyone can be disciplined for a week. Anyone can make a wise choice when life is peaceful. The calm commander is consistent, especially when life becomes difficult. They choose long-term stability over short-term impulse, long-term discipline over short-term emotion, long-term character over short-term relief. Consistency builds sovereignty. 6. They hold their standards. The calm commander does not lower their standards to fit someone else's chaos. They do not abandon their values. They do not compromise their peace for approval. They do not betray their identity for temporary comfort. Standards become their shield. A calm life is built on strong standards, not rigid perfection, but self-respect expressed through action. 7. They understand the power of emotional neutrality. Neutrality is not coldness, it is freedom. Neutrality means evaluating situations without distortion. It means not taking everything personally. It means not catastrophizing. It means not magnifying. It means not reacting from ego. Neutrality stabilizes emotions and strengthens judgment. 8. They protect their energy ruthlessly. The calm commander knows that energy is the root of emotional balance. They guard it carefully. They avoid unnecessary drama. They limit exposure to chaos. They create routines that ground them. They rest with intention. They choose environments that support clarity. They walk away from situations that drain more than they give. Their peace is a priority, not an afterthought. 9. They embrace accountability. When they make mistakes, they own them. When they overreact, they correct themselves. When they cause harm, they apologize. When they see patterns, they adjust. Accountability keeps the ego small and the awareness sharp. The calm commander evolves quickly because they take responsibility quickly. 10. They choose silence with purpose. Silence is one of the calm commander's greatest tools, not avoidance, but intention. Silence keeps them from saying what they will regret. Silence keeps situations from escalating. Silence gives them time to listen. Silence reveals truth. Silence exposes motives. Silence resets emotions. They do not rush to speak. They speak when clarity appears. 11. They use discipline as emotional armor. Routine stabilizes their internal world. Actions align with values. Habits support mental clarity. Discipline strengthens identity. A disciplined life prevents emotional collapse. The calm commander is not strict, they are structured. Structure protects them from chaotic impulses. 12. They detach from what they cannot control. Not out of indifference, but out of wisdom. They let people be who they are. They let situations unfold. They let outcomes take shape naturally. The calm commander focuses on their input, not the uncontrollable results. Detachment keeps them steady while everything around them moves. 13. They see conflict as communication. Where others argue to win, the calm commander speaks to understand. Where others fight to defend ego, the calm commander listens to learn. Where others escalate emotions, the calm commander de-escalates with presence. Conflict becomes insight, not war. 14. They practice the long view. The calm commander makes decisions based on the person they want to be in 5, 10, 20 years, not the person their emotion wants them to be in the next 10 minutes. This long view increases wisdom. It reduces impulsivity. It aligns choices with destiny, not with temporary feelings. 15. They become the stable presence others look to. People feel safe around them. People feel calm around them. People feel understood around them. People feel grounded around them. Not because they pretend to be strong, but because they regulate themselves deeply. Their presence becomes medicine. Their calm becomes influence. Their steadiness becomes leadership. 16. They master the identity of quiet confidence. Quiet confidence is not loud. It is not boastful. It does not need validation. It is the confidence of someone who knows, I am in command of myself. This confidence does not shout. It radiates. It influences. It stabilizes. 17. They understand that mastery is internal, not external. The calm commander is not defined by how life treats them, but by how they treat themselves. Not by what others say, but by what they believe internally. Not by the noise around them, but by the clarity within them. Mastery is self-direction. 18. They embody emotional sovereignty. Emotional sovereignty means your emotions belong to you. You feel them fully. You understand them deeply. You choose their expression intentionally. Nothing external owns your mood. Nothing external controls your peace. Nothing external defines your identity. Emotional sovereignty is the highest form of freedom. 19. They live with grounded strength. This strength is not aggression. It is not dominance. It is not hardness. It is stability. It is clarity. It is self-respect. It is the calm confidence of someone who does not fear their emotions because they have mastered their response. 20. They command themselves, and through that, they command their life. This is the essence of the calm commander. Command over thoughts, command over reactions, command over energy, command over choices, command over identity. Not through force, but through presence. Not through domination, but through self-leadership. You become the calm commander when you realize the greatest battlefield is internal and the greatest victory is self-command. Mastery is not control over others. It is command over yourself. Final reflection. You've reached the end of this audiobook, but emotional mastery is not something that ends here. It is something that continues within you, in your reactions, your habits, your thoughts, your boundaries, and your choices. The journey you just walked through is not a collection of ideas. It is a blueprint, a framework, a path toward becoming someone who leads themselves with clarity, not chaos, with presence, not panic, with strength, not struggle. As you reflect on everything you've learned, you'll begin to see the transformation already taking shape, not in sudden dramatic moments, but in quiet shifts within your mind and body. You begin to notice the space between stimulus and response. You begin to pause before reacting. You begin to breathe through pressure. You begin to detach from what you can't control. You begin to speak to yourself with command instead of criticism. You begin to protect your time, your energy, and your emotional world. This is emotional mastery, not perfection, but awareness, not fearlessness, but understanding. Not control over everything, but control over yourself. You have learned how emotional chaos is expensive, how attachment collapses peace, how discipline becomes emotional armor, how calm comes from biology, not magic, how inner strength is built through repetition, how your inner voice shapes your identity, how silence and timing protect your dignity, how energy, not emotion, is the root of stability, how boundaries create self-respect, and how maturity unfolds slowly over time. You have learned that mastery is not eliminating, emotion is leading emotion. You have learned that feelings are signals, not instructions. The thoughts are stories, not commands. That reactions can be replaced with responses. That peace is something you build, maintain, and protect. And finally, you have learned the identity of the calm commander, a person who feels deeply but does not collapse, a person who observes without absorbing, a person who responds without reacting, a person who stays steady while the world shakes, a person who leads themselves before trying to lead anything else. This identity is not something you force, it is something you grow into. And now, as this audiobook ends, you are stepping into the long game, the lifelong practice of emotional self-command. There will be days when you feel strong, days when you feel fragile, days when you fall into old patterns, days when you rise into new versions of yourself. Be patient with yourself. Growth is not linear. Healing is not instant. Mastery is not a single moment. It is a repeated choice. Every time you pause before reacting, you strengthen your command. Every time you choose clarity over impulse, you strengthen your command. Every time you protect your boundaries, you strengthen your command. Every time you return to yourself after slipping, you strengthen your command. You are no longer someone who is pushed around by emotion. You are someone who understands emotion, leads emotion, guides emotion, uses emotion as information, not as identity. And that shift changes everything. Your relationships become healthier, your decisions become smarter, your presence becomes calmer, your confidence becomes quieter and stronger. Your life begins to reflect your inner steadiness. Carry these teachings forward. Revisit them when you need grounding. Practice them when life feels heavy. Apply them when emotions rise. Live them when challenges appear. This audiobook was the beginning. The real mastery happens now in your daily choices, in your inner dialogue, and in the way you lead yourself moving forward. If this audiobook helped you grow, subscribe to Evoke Audiobooks for new self-growth audiobooks every week. Remember, peace isn't passive. Peace is power restrained. And you now have the tools to build that power within yourself. Thank you for listening. Your journey of emotional mastery continues from here.